Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Victor Hesselbrock. I'm a professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine.
So how did you move along your path in alcohol research? Maybe were there influences even in high school when you were growing up? How did you end up in science? And were there special people who had an impact?
I ended up in science totally by accident, as it were. And yes, there were many special people along the way. Going through school and my undergraduate work, I really was interested in clinical psychology. And when I went off to Texas Christian University as a undergraduate, because we were, our family was very poor. And so I took a job as a research assistant and did rat work with some very good people, looking at eating behaviors and things of that nature. And then after being an undergraduate, I got drafted into the Army, spent 15 months in Vietnam as a grunt. And then when I came back, went trying to go to grad school and did, again, thinking I was going to do clinical kinds of work, and ran my master's degree. I ran into a professor who was very big on epidemiology and statistics. And I don't know why, because I was never good at math. She influenced me, and said that I should go on to grad school, which I did. And in grad school, there was another professor, if you would, who was teaching statistics. And Mishi and I were married at the time and just had our first daughter, Diane. And again, I needed money, as all young couples do with kids, and worked as a TA with him, a teaching assistant, taught statistics, loved it. And a consulting job came along in child psychiatry. And so I went over and took the job as a statistician in the Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at Washington U. And it started from there. That was a longitudinal study of children of schizophrenic and bipolar parents. And so I was working and very busy, moving along on what I hoped would be a career. And that ended up with a faculty appointment, and went to talk to the chairman of psychiatry for the annual reviews. It's all faculty need to do. And the Sam Guzet, and I like Sam, I liked him an awful lot. But he looked at me and he said, "Well, Victor," he says, "we have a whole bunch of young people here, people that I didn't know at the time, people like Bob Cloninger, Ted Wright, John Rice, some other folks." He said, "You got a very steep mountain to climb if you want to get promoted and have a career here at WashU." So I thought, doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound like I'm going to go very far with this. And so I went back to the office where I was consulting in child psychiatry. Literally, as I opened the door, the phone rang. And Roger Meyer, who was a brand new chairman at the University of Connecticut, Department of Psychiatry, called and said, "We just got a big grant and we need some people. And you've been referred to me by Lee Robbins. Would you be interested at all in, coming up and being interviewed for the job?" I said, "I can be there Monday." So I came up to Connecticut with the intention of staying. Mishi and I talked, and with the intention of staying for maybe 5 years or something of that nature to get the career started. And so I went and interviewed with Roger and Jim Stabenow, another person who was well known in alcohol and addiction research at that time, although his real basis was schizophrenia. Interviewed me, and we hit it off. he offered a job, and so Michi and I moved to Connecticut, and with the intention of staying 5 years, and that's been 45 years ago. So 5 years is probably by pretty quick.
It's we're doing these interviews. It's impressive from unexpected turns.
Yes.
What challenges have you faced for your path?
Oh goodness. I have been one of the luckiest people in the whole world in that regard. So when I've encountered challenges, there's been individuals along the way who have helped me. I am probably the only person I know who I started with the Alcohol Research Center in 1978. We have just applied for renewal of that, another 5 years. So a little bit after that, we were required to develop a T32, which I did again with a senior colleague at Connecticut. That's still going. Not too long after that, there was an opportunity for COGA, thanks to Henry Begleiter and T.K. Lee. I joined that, and we're now renewing that. So along the way, in terms of research funding, I've been extremely lucky having wonderful colleagues who have contributed, and hopefully I've contributed to them as well along the way. And so my funding is from a research perspective, and I think that's people like myself who do clinical translational research or basic science. Funding is always the issue. For me, it's not been the lack of grants, but how to put it together, because of course there have been reductions in funding and gaps and short gaps and things of that nature. But I, unlike others, have not had some real difficult issues with funding or knowing where my research program is going and whatever. And I have to say, RSA and ISPRA have been fabulous in terms of getting to know people, being able to collaborate with them, having them contribute to my research program, and hopefully vice versa. I've contributed to theirs. So it's been a relatively smooth ride in that regard.
Very encouraging.
Yes.
Have you experienced call any eureka moments? How you got to those moments?
Goodness. Again, I think it was through just interacting with colleagues. I got into alcohol research essentially by accident, as I said. There's no one in my family or close friends who were affected in that way. But in terms of eureka moments, I think for me, and really to get involved in alcohol research was, again, Roger Meyer and Jim Stabenow, I have to say. Really, because I knew nothing about it. Yes, I'm a Vietnam vet, and there were people who were affected there, but they sort of insisted that I sit down and interview many of our subjects. And I interviewed probably about 250, maybe 300 people who participated in research in the Yukon Alcohol Center. And listening to them tell their story, because we had a structured interview. We started off with the NIMH diagnostic interview schedule, and it what did I know, about clinical type of things. But I learned so much about alcohol problems, what it did to individuals, the sequelae of that, both the psychological, psychiatric, if you would, depression, pieces of it. And we interviewed men and women some were younger, some were older. But I think that really probably, when I put it together, is that, alcohol problems across the lifespan, being able to talk to individuals who were affected, some more mildly, some more severely in that regard. A number of our patients, in fact, did die not too long after being in the study from medical consequences. A couple suicided. I think one was murdered. And being able to really, if you would, get into the patients and being able to put it all together in that regard. I think it's really helped me design research programs going forward, part of our center and part of the COGA project as well. So there have been quite a few eureka moments in that regard about, oh, so that's what these people were talking about. No, we need to look at that in more detail. We need to think about how we can intervene with those who are affected, and maybe design prevention programs, to help future individuals avoid those difficulties.
You say prevention programs. Are you thinking? Yes, there's alcohol in general. Are you thinking about prevention programs for particular aspects?
Well, being a part of the university, you always worry about the undergrads, and particularly the younger freshmen coming on campus, and being away from mom and dad and those parental controls, and it still happens. But again, Mishi and I were heavily involved with the schools of social work, and they were interested in designing prevention types of programs or education types of programs for faculty. And that was something we did early on to help faculty understand what are some of the risk factors, what to look for in your students if they're coming in sleepy or skipping class or things of that nature.
Now, it's one of the examples of practical application.
Yes.
Should be looking to do.
Yes. Yes.
What do you see as historical moments in developments to understand vulnerability? Alcohol?
Yeah. Boy, when I was younger and naive, I used to think that as you got into your mid-teens and whatever, and your friends started drinking, that was a sort of a keynote moment. And it clearly is. But having studied children and adolescents, there are moments much earlier than that. Kids who are having difficulties in school and become more isolated and don't have that peer support, if you would, that many of us had, going through school. The difficulties in the family situation where they're turmoil, and maybe divorce. And again, the kids not having the support is certainly something that is a key moment. As a veteran, I sort of trotted through basic training and advanced infantry training and whatever, but actually getting in country and seeing there were in our group, there was a number of young men who actually didn't meet the qualifications for being a soldier. They were too young. Some were almost 17, some were 17, and of course, you had to be 18 at that time. But watching them with the rigors of being in country and dealing with just the rigors of everyday life, not just combat, but being away from home, maybe not fitting in with the group because they were too young and the old guys would pick on them and things of that nature. But as you go through life, I've also seen individuals who struggled with their career. Am I in the right career, for example? Is this what I want to do? Things with the family are not going good. So there are really, if you would, pressure points all through the lifespan where individuals begin to drink. We also saw that in some of our older folks as they faced medical illness or loss of spouse, retired, or things of that nature. So I don't know that there's any one seminal event in the lifespan that pushes people to drink too much. But there are pressure points all along the way.
What do you see in the way of progress that making use of that kind of understanding to help prevent serious problems that come from alcohol?
I think there are actually a lot of resources available to individuals. Whether it's friends, whether it's employee assistance programs, things of that nature, even AA, if you would. The real difficulty, from my perspective, is that individuals fail to recognize and do not want to get help. And I wish we could find a way to make that happen. There are a number of individuals, and it's true all through medicine, who are looking for a magic bullet. Okay, let me take this pill and I can drink as much as I want, or all this is going to go away. And that's not true of any illness that I know of, psychiatric or medical. So I think that convincing individuals, and I don't know that we as professionals can do that. It may be something we have to teach family members or friends to say, you're drinking too much, or you should maybe see somebody about this or whatever, and get those individuals into help. We have a number of interventions that are effective. They do help. We've said here there's 3 FDA approved medications. There are a number of programs that are trying to look at medications off label now that probably have some good, but if people won't take their medications, whether it's for diabetes, heart disease, or alcohol problems, we're in a tough spot as professionals and as care providers.
I think you may already have answered this question. I wanted to ask you what challenges you see to understanding and implementing the prevention. If you've already answered that.
Well, again, Graeme, I think that it's the implementation. Back when I started, I'm not sure that employers were as interested in addictions as they are these days. But with the advent of employee assistance programs in schools at a whole variety of levels, I think that that's probably where we're going to be most effective in terms of prevention. And I would say probably in the lower grades, elementary school, junior high, and high school, just education types of programs that make folks aware of what are some of the difficulties. And yes, there are resources available to help you through the tough spots, through the pressure points that I mentioned.
So, as far as what you'd like to see, what you expect to see in the future, it sounds like a lot of this is education.
Yes. A lot of it is in education, but I think that, and being at RSA and ISBRA, it's really wonderful to see all the work that's being done by younger folks as well as the older folk on mechanisms and identifying biomarkers. Are there, this is clearly a polygenic disorder as well, but the advances that are being made on that front are really tremendous. And I think we're probably going to end up getting interventions, maybe some that are personalized, that are tailored to individuals as we get more familiar with the biomarkers. Some of those will be genetic, some won't. They,
You anticipate epigenetics playing a role in the personal approach?
oh, I think absolutely. Absolutely. Being involved in the COGA project when we started way back in 1989, I won't name names, but we would look at each other and sort of smile and say, yeah, let's see how this is going to go. And some of it you inherit, clearly, and others it's going to be because of lifestyles, not necessarily because you drank too much along the way, but other things. A lot of things cause epigenetic effects of your, what you consume, your lifestyle, where you work. If you're a painter, for example, and have exposure to acetone, it's going to affect you in a variety of ways. Other could be the computer guys too, sitting in front of a screen all day. There may be something coming off or radiating off of computer screens that cause an epigenetic effect. But it's again, it's a very interesting, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us as we go forward.
For researchers who are at the start of their careers, do you have any advice you'd like to offer, and including for basic science who want to pursue or prevention?
Yes. I have two pieces of advice I give everyone who will listen to me. One is to understand the difference between an option and an opportunity. They're not the same. And that's the same whether you're designing a research program or designing your career trajectory. I think that is just so important. Too many people take the options without looking to see what are the opportunities that are going to come from taking this next step or go forward. The other thing that I offer is to increase your network as an individual scientist, and whether you're a clinical, translational, basic scientist, etc., you don't know nearly as much as you think you do. So increase your network. Find people who are complementing, not doing the same thing, but complementing the work and the path that you're going to take. And I've been so lucky in finding individuals like that. Basic scientists as clinicians who don't do research, but will sit and tell me about patients, or I can describe a situation and say, what would you do as a clinician in this, and get input from them. That's I think that really has furthered my career in my research program.
And for researchers in general, is there anything you would like all of us, many of us, to be doing?
Again,
Something you would ask of us.
What I would ask about, and I include myself in there, is continue to do what you've been doing. Come to RSA, come to ACNP, come to ISBRA, and talk with your colleagues. It's one thing to sit in a Zoom meeting and talk about XYZ administrative types of things. But I've been so impressed, again, here we are in 2024, at the RSA meeting, with people actually sitting down with younger folks, with older folks. And I think the breakfasts and the lunches are fabulous, because sometimes there's not a seat available except at one table. And you sit down and you get to know people that you weren't acquainted with before, and talk science, talk applications, talk translation. And people are doing that. That's what makes science fun.
Yes, I agree very much. Chance encounters at meals in the hallway, who you sit next to in the session, can make an entire career.
I can go through the list of people in my own career where that's happened, who have had an influence. I mean, the chance meeting review with Sam Guzay, with Lee Robbins, with Jack Mendelson, T.K. Lee, Henry Begleiter, Susumu Higuchi, Michael Soika, Griffith Edwards, for example. I mean, I'm not name dropping. I'm just talking about folks that through chance encounters that I have met and who have listened as I talk about what I'm doing and offered advice. Sometimes I smile and nod and say, yeah, that's really good. And then other times I go, yeah, I should think about that a little bit. But it is, that's the nature of science too. How many findings have occurred by chance?
For what do you envision for alcohol treatment? What are you worried about with the near future is and with the longer future? Their alcohol treatment and prevention. What do you foresee?
Oh goodness. Well, I'm not sure what I foresee, but my hope is that we will find interventions, and some may be behavioral, some may be pharmacological, that are more effective than what we have now. If they were effective, we wouldn't be talking at this point. But the prevention of individuals who have a life course of heavy drinking, that would be fabulous. I'm hoping that that's not pharmacological, that it's something educational where we actually can make a change in a person's behavior so that they don't have to take pharmacological things. As one of my colleagues said, all medications have a side effect profile. And until we can reduce that side effect profile to zero, pharmacological interventions are important for the acute phase of the illness and often do help prevent down the road if the person can't change their behavior. But I would like for us to move that step for closer on so that when people begin to drink, if they choose to do so, that they're able to control that and not get into trouble.
And for members of the public who may see this talking here today, do you have anything you'd like to say directly to them?
I wish that the public, and I mean, public media, social media, in fact, would take a harder look at the science.
Sorry,
sure.
Can we back it up again?
Yes.
And say, okay, go ahead and start after I ask my question.
Okay. What I would hope is that the public, when bulletins come across through social media, public media, etc., would sit down and take a hard look at them and decide, based on scientific evidence, what's true, what applies to them, and what is just somebody's opinion. And that's true not only in addiction science, but it's true in all across health, all across the health issue. I don't know that the public is educated sufficiently, particularly around addictions and what the if you would, the causes, what are the solutions, what are the long-term outcomes. But I think we as people in alcohol research can do much more in terms of getting out to the public and give them a scientific-based message, not just an opinion or a wish.
So we will, the public may say we will try to reach out to you and help you understand.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Hesselbrock. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
My pleasure. It's been fun. thank you for inviting me.
Okay, now, so I'll end one there. You have time to be, it's 9:57. We talked about, these will be shorter than yesterday, redo TK and Henry Beglimer.
Yeah. Want to do Jack Mendelson too?
Oh, yes, that's an option. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Well, let's start with Jack Mendelson, since that's right in my head. And can I ask kind of the same questions that I laid out for Henry and TK, or I can leave it free for him, you could just talk.
Well, I just have a funny story about Jack, to follow up on what George was saying about him and what kind of a guy he was. He and his wife, Nancy Mello, really were dynamite in the field and made such large contributions. But as a very, very young faculty member, Jack Mendelson was a very good friend and actually the mentor of my chairman, Roger Meyer. Jack came to visit the University of Connecticut Alcohol Research Center. Roger had to be away. And so he said to Tom Babor and I, would you host Jack Mendelson? And we said, okay, we'll do that. So we took him to dinner and with several other people. And Jack was a very gregarious guy who also liked wine. And so we were sitting there at dinner and Jack ordered a bottle of wine and we all appreciated that very much. Then he ordered another one and the price kept going up and up. And so Tom and I kept looking at each other and going, boy, what's going to happen here? And because we were hosting. And so the evening went on, we had dessert and everybody was getting ready to leave. And so the check came and Tom and I looked at it. And I don't think between us we could have paid that guy. And so we were sort of mumbling, what are we going to do, this, that, the other. And about that time, Jack burst out into laughter and give me that. He says, I'm just pulling your leg the whole time. And that's Jack Mendelson.
Story of generosity.
No, very much so.
And humor.
And humor. And he knew how to twist young faculty and make them squirm a little bit. But again, he was just that kind of guy. He liked to play practical jokes too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a vision we'll have as scientists. I remember my own very serious jokes. Maybe evil, maybe good, but very serious. Not practical jokes.
Jack was a practical joker. But he was another man that I met, and he invited me up because he was running an addiction alcohol inpatient facility at Harvard, and he invited me up and gave me a faculty appointment, visiting faculty appointment at Harvard, and I interacted again as a younger faculty member with his crew up there, and again, just a chance meeting that paid off. Yeah.
It's good to be looked out for opportunities.
Yes, yes, that was an opportunity. It wasn't an option. Yeah.
Would you like to move to PK?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for that. So, how did you come to know TK?
I met TK right when the University of Indiana received their first P50 grant for an alcohol research center. He was hosting the directors of the alcohol research centers nationwide at that time. And I think there were maybe 9 or 10 of us. And again, Roger Meyer couldn't go and sent me as well to Indianapolis. And so we had our alcohol research centers meeting. And then at the end of that, he invited me and several others of the directors to his house for dinner with he and Susan, his wife. And so that was my first introduction to TK. We had a great evening. He was doing some construction on the house at that time, and being the handyman that I am, he invited me upstairs, and I reviewed with him what I thought was important or whatever. And he kind of smiled and nodded. But from then on, we, whenever we had the opportunity, we would sit, talk about science or talk about family, etc. Down the road, of course, he was part of the original COGA project, a collaborative study on the genetics of alcohol. And when Henry invited me to be part of that, Henry Begleiter invited me to be part of that group. That was, a good opportunity for TK and I to work not only with the alcohol centers, because we were doing some collaborations there, but on the COGA project. And then also an opportunity came for us through NIAAA again to do a study in Alaska with Alaska natives. Dr. Lee was very interested in ALDH22, the flushing response, and being a native group, he was quite interested in how they would respond to alcohol and whether there was flushing, etc. as well.
How do you see TK's personal history affecting his approaches to research and his interaction with people?
TK, not everyone knows, but was a refugee. He was born and raised in China during right at the end of World War II, when Mao Zedong was taking over China. His family fled. Parents with brothers and sisters fled to Australia, and then from there went to South Africa, where TK grew up, if you would, started medical school, etc. I think that affected him in that he, again, is looking for the good in people, looking for potential collaborators, but he was always open to new ideas, to meeting people, bringing folks in. A very warm and welcoming man in that regard. I think his early life did affect him quite a bit. And in medical school, he became an internist, and often treated people with alcohol problems as a physician.
Some of these questions you made.
Yeah, that's fine.
TK affect research path.
He was one of those individuals, as I think that you mentioned maybe yesterday or whatever, that was a sponsor. TK was very always open to opportunities, and a lot of opportunities came to him in that regard. And he was very willing to hand them off, if you would. It's similar to the study in Alaska. That was something that I think he was initially very interested in. And as we got the samples, and he was beginning to look at the genetics of drinking among Alaska natives, he was also very busy as a dean and probably a department chair at that time, and said, "Why don't you just take this and go forward?" But he was always available, no matter what the situation was or whatever. And he was just that kind of a man. And I know he did it with other folks in his group as well. Would look for opportunities for research, for career trajectory, a positive trajectory, if he would, and would hand those off as he could.
That's my question.
Okay.
Go to Henry.
Uh,
You do. You like some more water or anything?
No, but I'll just take a little drink here.
I actually have the same questions written down for Landry Human. I actually don't know anything about Henry's personal, but the question I asked about TK is still relevant. So I'll go. It's like, how did you come to know? How did you come to know?
I came to know Henry again. So many things in my career have happened by accident. My wife and I, Lucy and I, along with our daughter, were at the RSA meeting in Washington, D.C. It was lunchtime, and we were standing on the corner going off to a restaurant. And on the other side of the street was Henry Bagleiter with his entourage, as it were. He came across the street, and of course, everybody knew Henry, everybody in RSA. And I said to Lucy, I said, "Oh, here comes Dr. Bagleiter." And he looked at me, and for some reason, he recognized me. And said, "Oh, how are you?" And our daughter was there, and he just was really taken with her. And I think he has a daughter about the same age at that point. And so after about 2 or 3 minutes, he says, "Oh, why don't you join us for lunch?" Oh, okay. Here I am, fresh out of the box, as it were, talking to one of the leaders in the field. So we joined him, and from then on, we had many interactions at RSA meetings and other kinds of events. And as he was putting together his program in for COGA again, he invited me for whatever reason to be part of that, and it grew from there.
How do you see his personal history affecting his approach to research and interaction with people?
Yeah. Again, not everyone knows Henry's background. He was born in France. He's Jewish family, and he was born at the beginning of World War II. His family fled France, probably in the middle of the night, etc. And he was taken in by Catholic priests and protected during the war. Following the war, he went to London, reunited with his family, and then they came to the States. But I think that Henry was a very jovial, outgoing fellow, but he also had a little rough edge here and there. But from I think that early experience made him appreciate others, that others can help along the way. And he, at least in my experience, was always very open in terms of discussing, science and where her program should go that we were doing in COGA. He was also very open to talking about things that I was doing apart from COGA in the Alcohol Center or others. But I think that did affect him. And he also, as many people may or may not know, he was also one of the founders of ISPRA, the International Society, and helped reach out to people apart from the U.S. His wife was an immigrant as well from Cuba, and so he had connections into Central and South America. With TK, they had connections into Asia. Both of them had connections into Europe, so we're able to, pull these folks together and around common interest of studying alcohol and the addiction process.
Research that.
And Henry was a mentor. I don't know if he did it intentionally or otherwise, but as we would talk about, again, different options and opportunities, he would certainly offer an opinion. In COGA, as we was developing the program initially, and then with different succeeding renewals, he would always solicit input from individuals about that. But as I said, he sometimes had a rough edge, and sometimes, even though if he had an opinion, it was still his that, that counted in that regard. But at the end of the day, he really did strive for consensus. It wasn't my way or the highway, but you could tell very much when he was in favor of something or not in favor of something.
There's a quote, I'm probably paraphrasing, but I use the idea frequently when I'm mentoring and when I'm thinking about my own problem. So when you know that, then what do you know? Did I get that right?
Yes. Yes.
Did you encounter that phrase?
Yes. Well, in living color, as it were. Yeah. Yeah. But Henry was very good at bringing really disparate groups together, and particularly around the COGA project. We had individuals from 4 different universities doing very different kinds of things. The intramural program was involved at that time, and at least initially, putting that together and making it work. I think that's one of the things that I would say about Henry and about Dr. Lee as well. Ideas are great, but make them work.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, a funny story. It is always good to have little stories of that. Henry was very interested in having an international COGA, if you would, not funded by NIH, but also having individuals from outside who were one of the contributors. And certainly we set up relationships with the Japanese, with Susumu Higuchi, with different groups in Germany, and et cetera. But one of the individuals, he was contacted by a physician, an addiction physician in Trinidad, Tobago. So we wanted to go down, or he wanted us to come down. So Henry and TK were going down. They invited me to go along as well. Well, somewhere along the way, my bag stopped in Miami and never got to Port-au-Prince. And so we arrived there, and they had their clothes and everything, and I was wearing what I was and dripping wet. And Henry always laughed about my travel clothes, et cetera, et cetera. But we were to meet the Minister of Health. And so Henry says, well, and he looked around, they had all these tourist, comical T-shirts and everything. He says, well, I don't think you can wear those. He says, maybe you can wear some of my clothes. So, so he loaned me a shirt and a coat and a tie. So I was doing my Henry Bigleiter impersonation. He was considerably shorter than I. So we went to visit the Minister of Health. And of course, the sleeves came just past my elbow, and everything was real tight and all that. But he laughed about that forever. He and TK both.
Generous.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. As I said, Henry would give you the shirt off his back. And in one case, he did.